What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got big news. They have gone and banned the first two One Piece TCG cards that we've ever seen. These are the first two bans that we've seen in the game. And look, for a little bit of context here, right? I'm currently in a hotel room in Utrecht. I'm commentating a Pokemon TCG event this weekend. I got up early this morning, covered all the Pokemon TCG news, my other channel, PTCG Radio. And what am I going to do? Not make a video about banned cards just because I'm in a hotel room? Nah, I got time. Let's talk about these banned cards because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very, very big deal indeed. And now, it works here. They've gone and confirmed that it works the same way as it does in Digimon. And that is to say there are restricted cards, that is, cards where you can have one copy of your deck in official tournaments but no more. And then there are banned cards, which is to say cards that are not allowed to be put in your deck in any number. There are no restricted cards coming in here, which does seem to be what they do more often in Digimon. What we've got are two banned cards, and they've got explanations on the website, and basically what we've got here is very simply, you know what? There are a couple of decks that are too good, we're going to nerf them, and yes, obviously, one of these is Edward Newgate. Yeah. You see, what they've gone and done is banned the stage card Moby Dick. It's banned, it cannot be used in official tournaments. Go to your local game store, play some friendlies, that's fine. But at official One Piece TCG events, this card is banned. And this is clearly a direct result to Edward Newgate being ridiculously broken. You see, what we've got here is a stage card. It's a 2-cost stage card, so it's pretty cheap. As a trigger, you play this card, so if it ends up in your life and comes out, it comes out. And what this does is it says, if you have 1 or less life, your Edward Newgate and all your characters with a type including Whitebeard Pirates gain 2,000 power. Okay, fine. Seems good. The thing is here that Edward Newgate is like by far the best deck in the game right now. If you look at how things are going over in Japan and other Asian territories where OPO3 is legal, this is the best card in the game. As in, it's the best deck in the game, the best leader in the game. And it's not even particularly close, honestly. It's kind of ridiculous. And this is just one of those cards that helps out. Remember, the leader has a skill that says, end of your turn, add a card from the top of your life area to your hand. So you get down to 1 or fewer life remaining pretty quickly. And yes, I know that you start off with 6 life, but you can still whittle down your life pretty gosh darn quickly. And then you end up with an extra 2,000 power. So you end up with an 8,000 power leader, and you buff the rest of your Lifebeard Pirates as well. It's just too good, frankly, ladies and gentlemen. It's too good. And of course, we need to bear in mind here, it's a stage card. And stage cards are very hard to get rid of. Like, there really isn't much. In terms of stage removal in the game right now, that is one of the hardest things to do. Like, genuinely one of the hardest things to do. I mean, if you go over onto onepiece-cardgame.dev and you search for stage, you find a bunch of stages, and you find the Porcus D8 leader that lets you trash stages to buff power, and you find a single card, or rather I should say a pair of cards, that actually allow you to get rid of stages. You've got Yasakani Sacred Jewel from OPO2, that as a trigger KOs an opponent's stage of a cost of 3 or less, but only as a trigger, so if it doesn't end up in your life, it can't be used. And you've got Tempest Sky Slicer, which does let you get rid of a stage of a cost of 3 or less. They're both black cards, one only works as a trigger, and that's it. Like, in terms of stage removal, that is what we've got in the game right now. Which means we've got this really oppressive stage, which gives this huge advantage to by far the best deck in the game, and it is borderline impossible to remove. Yes. That's a bit of a problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's a bit of a problem. Then, of course, we got Izzo in OPO3 as well. And this was called out in the article, incidentally, where the card got banned. On play, look at 5 cards on the top of your deck, reveal a card with Whitebeard Pirates in its type other than Izzo and add it to your hand. And this says card. Any card whatsoever, including a stage. So now not only do we have this massively oppressive stage, which buffs the best deck in the format, not only is it borderline impossible to get hold of except for really rare exceptional circumstances, but it's also super easy to search in OPO3. Incidentally, there is a reason why Edward Newgate is good in OPO2, but by far the best deck when we get to OPO3, and it's because of things like Izzo, incidentally. That's the kind of stuff that, really helps to push this into the stratosphere. So for that reason, they've gone and banned Moby Dick, and I honestly get it. And I know some people won't be terribly happy about this, but if you look at the results coming out of Japan right now, Edward Newgate isn't just the best deck. Calling Edward Newgate the best deck is honestly a little bit disingenuous. It is by a huge margin the best deck, and that's the problem we've run into, and that's why this card has to be banned. But it is not the only card they've gone and banned. They've actually gone and banned another card from OPO2, and this is, of course, a little bit interesting, because they're banning cards from OPO2, both the bans are from OPO2, despite the fact that we've now got OPO3, and essentially it's the new cards in OPO3, which then make the cards from OPO2 a little bit broken. And this isn't actually that unusual. We'll see things like this happening again in the future. Cards look fine, and then some other cards get revealed, and you're like, oh no, that's too good. We need to get rid of this, ladies and gentlemen. This card is a bit bad, or Kabaji, I think it is in English. Anyway, so what we got with Kabaji here is, on play, if you've got Moji in play, draw 2 cards and trash a card from your hand. And I'll be honest with you, right, on the face of it, that looks like it's okay. It's not great. It's fine. Like, the downside is you've got to play Moji here, which a lot of the time, like, you're not necessarily going to want to do. It's a vanilla 1 cost 3,000 power, counter plus 1,000. It's a standard, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill vanilla card. It's fine, but you're essentially playing this decent 1 cost so that you can then play a second card, which will, the 2 cost, which can then draw you cards when you play it. And you'll see here, it's fine. But it's not exactly a particularly great card, and certainly in the OPO2 meta, no one is calling for this card to be banned. We do not need this card to be banned in the OPO2 meta. We are fine. But then we get to the OPO3 meta, and in the OPO3 meta, we see the introduction of Nami. And the introduction of Nami is a very, very, very big deal. Because you see, Nami brings in a new type of deck. Nami's got that additional rule whereby if you run out of cards in your deck, instead of losing the game, which is generally what happens when you run out of cards in your deck, you instead win the game. So what you're trying to do when playing a Nami deck is run cards out of your deck, whether that's by self-milling, discarding cards from the top of your deck, or just by drawing cards. That is the goal if you're playing Nami. You are trying to make sure you are running out of cards in your deck. At which point Kabaji actually becomes way better, because now you've got a bunch of 2-cost cards that will draw you 2 cards, which is not phenomenal draw, but that means by the time you played your 4 Kabaji, which remember are not expensive cards to play, as long as you've got a single Moji on the field, you're drawing 8 cards. That's 8 of your 50. That's 16% of your deck, not including all the ones you've already drawn, etc. And at this stage, this actually becomes legitimately good, and that's why it ends up going away. Now, they have called out some other cards here. They mentioned Zeph. Now, Zeph, for me, is one of the best cards in Nami. Zeph is the one whereby if you get an attack off, which is, hopefully you're going to do it, and you damage your opponent's life, you get to discard the top 7 cards of your deck, which is ridiculous. That's if you've got Don X1, I should say. You've got to have a Don on there. Plus, there's a play skill that returns a character of a cost of 3 or less to your owner's hand and then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Zeph is clearly amazing in Nami, and what they've basically done here is rather than banning Zeph, which would make the deck borderline unplayable, I think without Zeph, Nami becomes just a pretty bad deck. They've gone and banned Kabaji, which is a good card that helps the deck, but it's not going to completely kill the deck by getting rid of it. Whereas I think Zeph probably would. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I think it probably would. Without Zeph, I don't think this deck functions. Could be wrong. Absolutely could be wrong. But I look at this and I'm just like, you know what? If I don't have Zeph, I just don't think this deck is working. If I don't have Kabaji, I'm a little bit upset because that's some really good draw power. But it's not actually the end of the world. I can use it without. Now, they also called out Overheat. They basically mentioned it, plus a couple of other cards, means that Nami's getting too efficient. It's the phrase, the Google translated phrase, was more efficiently than expected. I.e., the deck is working better than they intended. Overheat is a counter that your leader or one of your characters gains 4,000 power, then return an active character with a cost of 3 or less to your owner's hand. As a trigger, it's a character with a cost of 4 or less. But remember, Overheat allows you to basically buff up as a counter. Yay, I'm not taking, my opponent's not taking my life away. But then also I get to put a 3 cost or lower character back to my hand. And obviously what I'm going to go for here is Kabaji, the 2 cost, so I can then replay it. And what they're basically saying is, look, because Overheat lets you reuse Kabaji, and you've got Zeph there as well just being ridiculous, we've had to go on and ban this. Now, I need to make something super clear here. Zeph does let you return Kabaji to your hand. So the on-play of Zeph lets you return a character of a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand, yours or your opponent's. So just like Excess Whiplash, you can get it back. So in the article, they're saying like, hey, Excess Whiplash and Zeph let you pick Kabaji up, so Kabaji's too good. But I still wanted to talk about Zeph more broadly here, because I do think getting rid of Zeph gets rid of the deck. Kabaji here is a decent card, and because you can reuse it with stuff like Overheat and Zeph, that's the reason why they've gone and banned it. I see this, I get this. They're basically trying to nerf the deck without killing it. Both of these bans seem to be very much in the same vein, which is, these decks are better than we were expecting them to be. Let's ban a really good support card, but not a main card in the deck, so the deck can remain, but the power level comes down a little bit. I get it, and honestly, no matter whether you agree with these bans or not, can we all just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Bandai are clearly paying attention, and they clearly care about us having a good playing environment, even if you disagree with the bans, even if you're absolutely furious that other cards weren't banned instead, blah, blah, blah. That's not really the point I'm trying to end on here. The point I'm trying to end on is, Bandai are watching, Bandai are paying attention, and Bandai care about trying to make sure we've got a good playing environment, and that's actually pretty gosh darn cool. Right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, those are the bans, and I think I've done a pretty good job here of explaining the reasons for the bans, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these bans, tell me if you agree, tell me if you disagree, tell me if there are other cards you wanted to see go instead. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.